So hi, John, and hi, Amanda, and welcome to the show. This is the future of branded content marketing and PR. It's a podcast, and we'll also have this on YouTube. So the idea of this is to really imagine the future and uh, think where is the branding, where is marketing and all that going, because I think. I think we really need to rethink the entire story of marketing. If this continues and this situation, even if it gets rectified, it will come back, and there will be such times like this. And our whole, as we were discussing individually, the whole paradigm shift there's a paradigm shift from bringing people together. The whole marketing effort was to bring people together, whether it be in the form of a seminar, a sports event, a party, a clubbing, and then market to them. And this now probably things aren't going to change. So I'll start by just having Amanda and then John. Just introduce yourself in two minutes. What you've been doing and all that. We'll start with Amanda, and then let's go to discussing where things are going and where they are and where they are going. So Amanda, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Karnvir. Well, it's a great pleasure to be here. I'm Amanda Groom, the Managing Director of a company called The Bridge. And the primary role of The Bridge is to bridge between US, UK, and Asian companies to create global television programs. So we work pretty much with everyone. And if you like, really, we're a giant matchmaker, bringing together the right talent, the right opportunities, location access, people, commissions, and to match them with suitable partners, really to make an end result bigger than the individual part. So everything I do is about co-production. Clearly, branding and brand partners, ad-funded programming is a part of that, and I look forward to discussing more about that and more about the consequences in time after John's introduced himself.
Nothing quite as glamorous. So I'm John Adams. I am UK based. I am essentially an influencer in quite a specialist niche. I'm essentially a dad blogger. My background being that back in 2011, my wife and I took the decision that she would be the main financial provider for the family, and I would stay at home and concentrate on family and home, which is even today quite an unusual thing. There have been changes in the past 10 or so years, but I started blogging about it, and I accidentally launched a second career as a dad blogger, and with my children now both at school, well, should be at school, of course. I'm now much freer now to actually make money and concentrate on this accidental career of mine. My background, however, is originally in journalism, and then I spent some time working in PR. And I see, yes, as Calvin has said, I see massive changes in how brands are going to have to operate, how society is going to have to operate. And I think in the past few weeks, I've just seen, it's no exaggeration to say paradigm shift, education, just social interaction. And I think healthcare as well is another area where we're going to see.
So, just to start the discussion, Amanda, what have been the most startling aspects of life that you have seen that have changed in the past 4 weeks with this entire concept of coronavirus, work from home, social distancing?
Yeah, interesting question. And my immediate response is that really this has kneecapped active production. Now, so all of the filming that, certainly most of the filming that came under The Bridge, because that's Asian Western co-pros, so that all is completely on hold. But even within specific countries, most filming is on hold. When I talk to my clients in China, in Australia, UK certainly. So everything is on hold because, of course, it requires crews going out, mixing with people, etc., etc. So there's been a really noticeable shift to archive material. Suddenly people are looking for, can they build programming from their own archives and from others' archives? Interestingly, this is interesting, there are a lot of queries coming in to India, Thailand for their wildlife archives, their wildlife libraries. So there are things that are being sort of scrambled together, but certainly the focus is very much on when the travel bans lift, because production is something always really that will require people to come together. And it means really at the moment that a lot of the broadcast schedules are really suffering. They will begin, so we won't see it quite yet. Well, actually we are seeing it quite yet with some long running dramas, soap operas, etc. In the UK, but certainly as the weeks go on, we will really begin to notice an increase in repeats and different forms of programming.
I mean, do you think, John, that the kind of, you've been blogging, and I think you did a paradigm shift in a way, and I don't want to sound egoistic or something, but you know, having the woman being the bread earner and the man being I don't know how many men or women would accept that or be willing to try that. But do you think that there may be more paradigm shifts coming in with this new way of working, and just what we aspire to do? Is that going to change now?
I think yes, and in fact, I was asked that question, or similar, a variant to that question today by someone else. And for the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to assume that households are made up of mum and dad and children, and it's dad who goes out to work. Now, obviously, that's a huge stereotype. Not every household is like that, but just for the purposes of this discussion, I think there are going to be a lot of men out there who are the main earners for their families, who are going to roll up at home, working from home on the orders of the government, and they're going to get a nasty shock because they're going to clear out the spare bedroom, or they're going to make a home office, or they're going to commandeer the dining table, and they're going to say, this is my space, this is where I'm working, and they're probably going to get wives and children who are going to say, but hang on, you know, we're here more than you. What is this? And they're going to get a bit of a wake-up call. I think they're also going to see just how much it goes into running a house. So there's this concept of kin keeping and kidmin, which is where when couples get together or get married, it's the woman who does all of the admin, is the social secretary, and does all of the admin with the children. Obviously, in my household, that's me that does that, rather than my wife. But men are suddenly going to see how much this women do. And I think there's one positive outcome I want to see from this. It will be more equality on the domestic front. And of course, the other big thing is I think we are inevitably going to see a lot more flexible working and a lot more people working from home. I think the genie is really out of the bottle on flexible working now. There are inflexible employers, dinosaur bosses still knocking about from the 60s and 70s who don't appreciate how far technology has come. They're seeing it now. You know, I think a lot of companies are probably only just surviving because their staff are working from home. And if they get a flexible working request from an employee in future, they're going, you know, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to turn it down.
I know Amanda is smiling with all this because she's very happy, listening to you. I mean,
I'm agreeing 100%. I think your comments about the reality in the home front, if you like, to use a war metaphor, is absolutely spot on. That we haven't been aware of how unseeing we have been about even what goes on in the home. I think for many men, certainly not all men, but I think for many women as well, it's, you know, it depends on who is doing that primary child care, etc., it will be quite an interesting eye-opener as to how the home actually functions through meal times and noise levels and, you know, all that sort of stuff.
But do you think there is going to be a change in the in principles? Do you think that people will think differently? Do you think that you know, suddenly because of this whole area, are they going to change society's very thought processes because of, you know, the way we have to live now and the way we have to work?
It's I tell you one thing that I think will happen. It's only small, but it might just be an example for many things. So, for example, in television, a lot of people are freelancers. And a lot of freelancers right now, you know, it's very much an independent sector producing these great programs. And a lot of those people now feel thrown onto the bonfire, if you like, by the very broadcast networks that actually, whose business is based on the programs the freelancers make. So I think almost certainly there will be discussion and an increased awareness. Whether that translates into actually business practices and or legal, a sort of a legal basis, I don't know. It would be very nice to think that it would certainly move towards that, to be giving individual workers more a greater safety net, and the same with the gig economy, you know, the delivery drivers, etc. I think it has become very obvious that when something like this hits, those people who cannot afford to stop working will put the whole of society at risk. Therefore, it works better for society to begin to nurture and protect them better.
So, you know, coming to branding, you know, Amanda, you are in the film industry, and John, you're in the blogging. All these are, both these industries are dependent on people's interests. You know, you try to turn on people's interests. You try to make films that people want. You try to write what people are concerned about. We'll start with John. Do you think that do you think there's what people want out of your blogs, what fathers want? Do you have you had to think differently than what you have been writing? And have you noticed in terms of your statistics on your blogs, concerns or, you know, people writing in or feedback, have they changed? And how do we address how do brands, suppose brands want to address dads from going into the future? How was it before, and how do you think it's going to change into the future with this new paradigm shift in family and social life?
Well, it's actually been fascinating. If I look at my blog statistics, there are various posts on my blog that they're historical posts, but they attract a lot of traffic. One of them is motoring focused, and another one, of all things, is actually focused on men getting thrush. Don't ask me why, but it draws a huge amount of traffic. And there are a handful of other posts as well I could think of, but I won't list more. This would be a very boring podcast if I did.
No, please go ahead. It's wonderful to get into nitty-gritty. We would like to know. That's the point.
Okay. Well, there are various interviews I've done with TV presenters, and also product reviews that I've done for kitchen implements and that type of thing, that have always attracted a lot of repeat views. I mean, even though they were written 2 or 3 years ago, and I think this is a very important point to make, is I think that people, there's been within my world a huge shift of people putting all their effort into Instagram, when actually for a long form blogger like myself, my blog posts, they have a lifespan of years. Okay, commercial content I've written just has such a lifespan. But pretty much overnight, when the schools closed on March the 20th, and I would log on and look at Google Analytics, what people were looking at flipped. Those blog posts about thrush, about kitchen implement reviews and so on, people aren't really looking at them. They're looking at family tech items that I've reviewed. And there are some educational videos. I experimented about 4 years ago making a series of YouTube videos of science experiments with my kids. the blog posts I wrote to promote those videos, they are now top of what people are actually viewing. So clearly what's happened is people are now looking for content and things where they can educate their children, and for tech items that they can review, or so tech items that they might be using at home with their children. And in fact, something I'm quite dismayed at actually is the tech companies. I think they're missing a trick. I'm really surprised I haven't really heard from any, well, very few, to actually promote their product. Because I know as a father, I've had to rush out and buy 2 laptops for my children because all the schooling has gone online. And I think this is another genie that's out the bottle. My kids have actually, with some, I mean, okay, so we're only 3 weeks into this experiment, but they've been homeschooled, online schooled for 3 weeks. And I think education policy makers are probably going to be watching this very closely. And we're going to probably see more online lessons. And I just think that, yes, we're going to see more demand from family tech companies, or people are going to want to come to my blog for that type of content. Yes, more educational content, and family, probably also family entertainment stuff. I think people are going to come for more of that also in future.
Yes, just to support that, I don't know the actual figures, but Disney Plus certainly launched at a very good time. So my understanding.
Oh, did it?
You know, they must be going, we did something right. And you're absolutely right. Even on the main TV schedules, family entertainment has become a big thing. It is said, it's been said here that the BBC is reversioning content into educational content. I mean, look, it's interesting as well because it is also understood that when times are tough, when there are wars or famines or whatever it is, when there's a lot of strife in the world, people do turn towards more comforting programming. And when everything is going along just fine, we develop more voyeuristic, perhaps slightly more uncomfortable viewing, perhaps something like Big Brother. Or
what is comforting programming?
All of the, that's a good question. Things like a series like Call the Midwife, or something about vets, something a Spring Watch, or here in the UK we have a Autumn Watch, Spring Watch, where you're looking at animals and you're looking at the turning of the season. Something where people are nice and kind to each other, rather than something where they're a lot more edgy and involving elimination processes. Elimination always results in there being a loser. So it's much
like John mentioned, like I put this question to both of you. Do you think advertisers and brand managers have completely missed the bus over the past 4 to 8 weeks? Because as you mentioned, John, no one is like, I don't see, at least in India, I don't see any advertising of, say, laptops or, products which you need at home, or cleaning products, or even, a robot, a cleaning robot for the floors, or, like all kinds of, I mean, I see them in some kind of a flux in which they don't really know where to go, left or right, and they're just watching the news, and they've just forgotten about their own products and how they could be put to use. I mean, it's not about sales all the time. It's just communicating to people the advantages of certain products that you have.
I think there are 2 answers to that. I think, firstly, I know from trying to buy my kids laptops that, I mean, I don't know Karnvir, what things are like in India, but there were various items that just sold out in UK supermarkets. Bizarrely, lavatory roll was one of them, and I still can't get my head around this. But I think laptop computers and cleaning products bizarrely fit into a similar category. I know from the trouble I had trying to get my kids laptops, I don't actually think the tech companies necessarily at this point in time have to advertise, because you've got every employer is trying to buy laptops and monitors for their staff, and every parent is trying to buy tablets and laptops for their kids so they can be homeschooled. But I think you're absolutely right in that, I certainly hope the marketing and advertising industries are analysing like anything right now, so they're all primed for the changes that are going to happen in society when we're through this. Because I think the other thing is that not only are we going to see more home-based working, more home-based education, more home-based sort of healthcare, but I think we are going to see people are much more aware about the environment, and companies are going to have to stress their green credentials in a big way. But I think the other thing that advertisers are facing is the same that all employers are facing, is that on the government's orders, all their staff are having to work from home at a moment's notice. Logistics, I mean, they are working to a point, but logistics aren't really working. So I think there is a problem. So what are we going to advertise when we can't even get them on the shelves? But what I do think is hopefully we'll have a marketing and an advertising industry, and not to mention all employers have been through this for once, and hopefully their crisis planning in future will actually be much more ready for this type of thing. Because who knows, look, we've got COVID-19. What's to say next year it won't be COVID-20, the year after that COVID-21?
Yeah.
Who knows? You know, we've got to be ready for this type of thing in future.
Yeah, so that's what, one of the things that I thought of this is that we haven't really, brand managers have just frozen. They have not taken out any, there's no movement, there's no product design for something. Yes, as you are saying, logistics is a problem, but logistics would be a 2 or 3 week problem. But schools are, the social shift is going to be way into the future. And this would be the right time to convince people about the kind of products that they should be getting, or the kind of how a certain brand is caring about them in different ways. It doesn't even have to be the product out to you. I mean, if some brand, say a Vodafone, packed a few toilet rolls and, just got them out, free to a few people, they'd create so much a positive vibe. And look at the advertising that they would have. All they need to do is buy 100,000 toilet rolls, cover them in Vodafone's wrapping, and put them for free on street corners.
You're absolutely right, and there's more than to that as well, because there's an irony happening here. Advertising revenue on the commercial television channels has plummeted. As a result of that, I mean, even one of the Channel 4 in the UK is really under threat at the moment. And now you might argue, why on earth is that? Because so many people are actually trapped inside. So in fact, viewership of programs, ironically, is soaring. So whether it's a strange inertia, one wonders if it's panic. And I wonder if it is, because in fact, viewers are now turning to an awful lot of television. So in fact, in many ways, now is not the time to plummet your ad revenues, but the knock-on effects commercially are significant, of course.
What do you think are the future of certain sectors? For instance, there are certain really interesting sectors like automobile, real estate, sports. These are sectors which were some of the greatest sectors 3 months ago, and suddenly no one is even talking about them. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? Maybe John, you can comment, and then Amanda, about where do you think these kind of sectors will go in the future?
Was very interesting you said that, because I've just today published a car review on my blog, as it happens, and it was a great car, but it does actually look slightly odd in the current environment, because nobody is really driving, and the other thing is, of course, is, as I say, I think there's been this exponential growth in home working, and people are discovering that in this period of extreme stress, it works. So people are going to be Zooming, WhatsApp, FaceTiming. So people are going to be traveling. So I'm.
What do you think is the future of extramarital relationships?
This is a really good point. I think I actually wrote on the blog yesterday, day before yesterday, about the impact of COVID-19 on people's sexual relationships, because there's been a lot of talk about baby booms.
Yeah.
There's going to be no baby boom.
Everybody's too stressed.
Well, if you're, as I said to you're breeders like me, we've got kids running around the place, and this is a really emotionally draining time to be in.
Yeah.
The last thing on your mind at the end of the day
Yes.
is frankly reproduction.
And to add to that, John, as well, you really wouldn't want to be considering a dating app right now either. I mean, dating apps suddenly must have just dropped off the end of the earth. No, you know, it's our habits are going to take some time, aren't they, to readjust after all this. I think your point, Karnvir, about why brands haven't jumped onto helping is a really good one. I wonder if it is panic that they really weren't prepared, because I completely agree with you. The power of now delivering, I don't know, let's say even webcams to school, to all the homes in poorer areas, of whatever it might be, it would be just, you know, what a fantastic opportunity is that. So whilst we realise, and just as you say, John, of course, there is the problem where they're all disappearing off the shelves anyway, but it does look like this really genuinely has caught everybody on the hop. And I think a lot of people have simply not known what to do. So the response has almost been to batten down the hatches, stop spending, stop, you know, stay indoors, do nothing. And it'll be interesting to see potentially some fairly innovative things coming out from this. But I think so far it's really been shock is the main response that we've all been in, isn't it?
So, you know, we could go on and on, but of course, you know, we are on a time schedule over here. You know, just to wrap, one of the questions which always, and I did talk about it individually before, but what do you think is going to be the future of something like citizenship? Because it always intrigues me that, you know, citizenship is one of the last things that you get by birth. You know, there were these, as we go back 50 years, 100 years, there were professions which were determined by birth. There were occupations, there were, you know, families, there was property, and all of it has kind of dissolved. And the only thing which now remains, which gives you an unfair advantage or an unfair disadvantage, is probably citizenship, where countries have been able to create artificial barriers and say, no, we will not, you know, let you in. Well, if work from home takes on so strongly, and, you know, the technology starts going into it, the funding starts going into it, then it doesn't matter if you're sitting in Kenya delivering work into London, or you know, even a city like London. Suppose the entire central London, the demand starts going down, because a person could be well off sitting in Wales, you know, at £200 a month, you know, property, and delivering to a company in central London. It really doesn't matter. So how do you think society, just imaginatively, do you think there would be a change? Do you think there's a paradigm shift? Amanda, maybe...
Shall I go first? There will definitely be a paradigm shift, and I think as everyone is proving that it is possible to work from home, there will be a big sort of reappraisal as to whether it's necessary to live all cramped into inner cities. Now I'm talking here about sort of the big cities, if you like, of Europe, US, etc. That same choice doesn't come, of course, for people in Mumbai or Jakarta and whatever, which is a very different reality, and Manila, etc. But yes, certainly there will be a lot of reappraisal. I think what we don't know yet is what actually will change. One thing that people still need people, and they still spark off people. So although we're having a very creative conversation here, it's amazing how many creatives I know who are missing the wine bars of London, or the cafes and the buzz of life, you know, the big events that have all been cancelled, everything from sort of MIP to MIPIN to, you know, all of those events around which people form their working calendars. Those have created a hole. And I'm sure that if you were an athlete, you'd most certainly be saying that about the Olympics. So it's yet to be seen. That
you know, I have a theory about the Olympics as well.
Yep.
I'm like, why? You know, a lot of the sports events, we don't need to be physically together. I mean, you can run in a different country, and another person can run, and the timings could be matched together.
That's
That's
absolutely right. But when
you can have archery, you know, one person can be doing archery in Indonesia, and another person could be doing archery in Greenland, and just match the scores.
You just have to worry about the neighbors of the people there, don't you? With
yeah, absolutely. Or shooting, and I'm sure that there'll be a situation where you can even replicate the wind speed, and you know, you can have a light breeze in the indoor facility.
Yeah. But that doesn't address the emotional and psychological impact of there being an audience, which has been much discussed, hasn't there? I mean, again, the thing where there are creative discussions going on, but there is still a missing of, people are missing the physical getting together. That's from my side. What about you, John?
John?
Yeah, well, just a couple of points I'd make regarding the Olympics. One problem I can see actually is differing levels of scrutineering. If people were all over different countries, they're in one place, you would have a standard of scrutineering. And this has come back to the other point you made a moment ago, Karnvir, about sectors that might be impacted badly. I used to be a travel journalist, and there's one thing I would not want to be involved in at the minute. It's the airline industry.
Oh yes.
I think that's
cruises.
Definitely cruises. Definitely not. But in terms of the impact on citizenship, well, what can I say? I mean, Amanda and I, you know, we're UK based, and the discussions that have been had on recent years of citizenship have actually been quite horrible. And I think the other thing is, as much as I would love to say, I think there will be a certain dropping of barriers, and certain artificial barriers may disappear. Some of the, I can only call it racist rhetoric, I have started seeing about the Chinese. I can see there will be a certain element of the population that will actually retreat and retrench. And while they may be perfectly happy to make use of wonderful technology that's there, I think people are scared, and when people are scared, they look for a scapegoat. And I do worry that there is an element of that going on at the moment. In terms of being, you know, what would once have been called a woolly liberal, I suppose I'd have to call myself that. I'm all for the tearing down of citizenship. I mean, I'm actually, I'm a mishmash of, my parentage is quite mixed actually, although I'm raised in the most English of English villages. I've got quite a colourful background myself, so I personally see huge benefits in the you know, the mixing of us all, and I'm all in favour of it, frankly. So I'd like to see a positive element of this, but unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be wholly positive.
Well, what a fascinating discussion. I think we are just at the beginning of a whole societal and an economic and you know, a lot of changes probably going right deep down into people's minds beyond everything else. I mean, people's interests, people's desires, what they work for, what they lived for, are probably going to see a marked change, you know, over this event. And I think we, as brand marketeers and, you know, you know, people managing brands and public relations, I think we really have to be sensitive to that, which I doubt if we have realized the tectonic shift that has really happened in the world as yet. I think we're still getting used to it. So I thank both of you for taking out the time to discuss this and being futurists and being visionaries. And I look forward to a lot of other discussions which we have in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Karnvir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karnvir. Yes, it's great. Goodbye, man.